Okay, so we are towards the end of our explanation of all the questions we asked at the beginning of the Maimer. Questions we asked were, what is so significant about being called this nation? Why is that a special thing? And we answered that the word this indicates the essence of something. And the only real thing they could say about it, that this is what it is something holy. And within holiness itself, truly, the only thing that with you could really say this is what it is, that it's a real reality, is only the essence of Hashem, because all other things that exist in the entire spiritual cosmos only happen to be there because God wills them to be there. God doesn't emit light like the rays of the sun, where the sun is forced to give off light. Rather, whatever exists is because Hashem wills it to be there. And therefore, only concerning God's essence can you say this is what it is. And a Jew also, because a Jew is attached to the Eibishter, a Jew is also has that clarity in him, just like Moshe Rabbeinu was someone who, in this world, channeled the truth of Hashem, and so to the Moshe of every generation, so to the Jewish people, by virtue of their attachment to the Eibishter, to Torah mitzvahs, and they also have within them this spark of Moshe within them, and this becomes manifest through the challenges that we have, and through our attachment to Moshe Rabbeinu. And now, Dr. Bressman is back on. We're going to go further into the third part of the equation. Why does it say it in the feminine? So we started saying yesterday is that a Jew does their mitzvahs not only because he wants an attachment to Hashem, rather a Jew does their mitzvahs because this is what Hashem wants him to do. It's not about what he wants. He gravitates what does the Eibishter want. That's a Yid's approach to their mitzvahs. There's something inside the Jew that this resonates with. There's a lot of things we do, but who are we really? We are that part of us which has this clear perception of the Eibishter. I don't suspect you guys to hear the woman of Torah yesterday, so I'll tell you about Maisa. That brings this out. The Frierdiker Rebbe said that the light of every Yontif shines every day, and the light of Pesach shines constantly. So there's a different phrase about every Yontif, it shines every day, and the light of Pesach shines all the time. So why is there the distinction? What does that distinction mean? So the only one I would suspect of hearing 1 minute of Torah would be Yonatan. So okay, whatever, you have to hear it again. So the Frierdiker Rebbe explains about the Frierdiker Rebbe's letter. He says that every Yontif, it shines according to that space and that time. The Yontif of Sukkot has its particular energy about Simcha, etc. And it's about the mitzvahs that we do, because Sukkot is a holiday with many mitzvahs. The holiday of Shavuos is a holiday about the Torah. And the Torah mitzvahs apply to us every day in a different way. Every day has its mitzvah. As our Yom Yom for today says, that every person is endowed by Hashem with the strength they need for that particular spot in the world they're in. So that's how we receive light from every mitzvah. That's what the Frierdiker Rebbe says. Every Yontif shines every day. But Pesach, he says, shines all the time. Why? Because the light of Pesach is not about a specific detail. Light of Pesach is a spark of Emunah, and Emunah is who we are. Rabbi Cheskel Landau was once visited by this man who had this following dilemma. The dilemma he had was that he had come to town with his wagon driver, and he had come to buy merchandise, and he comes to Nedi Yehuda and he says, I have a problem. What happened was, as soon as I got to town, the wagon driver beat me up. He stripped me of my clothing. He took my clothing. He gave me his clothing. Now I look like I'm the wagon driver. He looks like he's a rich man. And he says that's what the reality is. And I don't know what to do. So Rabbi Landau sent for both of them to appear before him in a din Torah. And they told him, come by 7 o'clock in the morning. And it was in the time when people actually paid attention very seriously when the rabbi calls them, So they come at 7 o'clock in the morning, and he says, I'm busy right now, I'll be with you guys soon. He keeps them from 7 in the morning till 1 o'clock in the morning without eating and drinking. He's busy the whole day. Sorry, I'll be with you soon, All day. These guys went crazy. Finally, 1 o'clock in the morning, he says, okay, the wagon driver should come in. And without thinking twice, the real wagon driver gets up and walks in. So the clothing that we wear do many different things, but the clothing that we wear isn't really who we are. Who are we really? We are Amzu. We are the nation that has absolute faith in the Eibishter, and it's constant. And that's something we are. So we are Pesach all the time. That's why the Friedrich Rebbe says Pesach shines constantly. It's there every day in the same way. It's Emunah. Emunah permeates you every day in the same way. Emunah is the same thing every day. Of course, Emunah has to grow, but the part in us where Emunah comes from is our very core. So the reason why it's said in the feminine is because our approach to Yiddishkeit is not masculine. It's not with an interest. It's not with something that we want to get out of it. Rather, it's feminine. We want to just hear what Hashem wants us to do. And unlike other soul powers, which are complex and detailed and have partial fulfillment when something happens, desire is something which either you fulfill a desire or you don't fulfill a desire. When you understand the concept, there's a question, there's an answer, there's a proof. You can understand part of it. You can learn the Mishnah without the Gemara. You can learn Gemara without the Rashi. You can learn Rashi without the Tesis without Maharsha, Maharsha without. But with desire, either you're fulfilling your desire or not fulfilling your desire. So a Jew's approach to Yiddishkeit is, what does Hashem want? What is Hashem's desire? And therefore, how do we approach Yiddishkeit? That means even if it's the most weighty mitzvah, or it's to us, it seems like the lightest mitzvah, the Torah says, don't weigh mitzvahs. Don't say this is more important, this is less important. It's what the Eibishter wants. That's how you just approach their mitzvahs. So that's where we got up to yesterday. And now we're going to continue on this discussion about the power of desire and our approach to mitzvahs on page 94. Let's go from quotations. The line starts with the word velachin. Velachin kasher odom mitzvah kayim seratzon elyon. When a person desires to fulfill the will of Hashem, it doesn't matter to him if this mitzvah is considered to him the lightest of all mitzvahs, the most insignificant and unimportant of all mitzvahs, or it's considered to him the most weightiest mitzvah. Why doesn't it matter if one is weighty, what isn't? Why doesn't it matter? This doesn't matter because this is because our performance in mitzvahs is not because it's logical, rather it's because of our acceptance, the yoke of Hashem. That was quoting a sikha, a mimer rather, that was said earlier that year, Babas Lagani, and it touches on that also, that mimer that we were speaking about last time. Before we learned this mimer, we learned about the difference between the servant and we learned about a faithful servant who is happy to do the will of his master. Miknerav. So here is another concept of a son who is also a servant. That difference in a son who is also a servant is like this. The servant does the will of his master. He doesn't feel what the desire really is. He doesn't understand the reason for the desire. But as child, he feels the desire of his father. He understands why his father wants something. But even though he knows why his father wants something, he doesn't do it because it makes sense to him. He doesn't do it because of logic. Rather, he does it to fulfill the will of his father. So he knows the reason. And despite the fact that he knows the reason, his intent in doing the will of his father is just because his father wants it. And that's the meaning of this nation. When a Jew does their mitzvahs with a sense of accepting the yoke of Hashem, he connects with God's essence. And that's why the Torah phrases this in the feminine, because the whole being, the whole essence of a Jew is that he is a recipient to the will of Hashem. and he serves Hashem with a sense of obedience, and that's how he connects with the essence of Hashem with this Kabbalah Sil. If he does Torah mitzvahs because it's logical, doesn't get to the essence, does Torah mitzvahs with the sense of Kabbalah Sil, that's with this sense of obedience, that's what connects him with Hashem's essence. So despite the fact that he may know the reason for it, and he understands it and he appreciates it, but yet he's able to also go deeper than that and say, what does Hashem want me to do? And this is the unique quality of a Jew, that a Jew does, that's his relationship to Hashem. What does the Eibishter want? That's when you go on Tzayim, you put on film with somebody, right? And the guy, after you put on film, is like, something happened, so very often. Something happened. And he's looking at you like, wow, you must like, you must be the guy. And you know that you're not the guy. You have no idea what happened either, right? that's really what's happening. Doing Tzayim, it's the Eibishter wants something to happen. And you did the will of Hashem, he did the will of Hashem, and you both have no idea what's really going on. That's even though you know what film is and what film's supposed to do and the impact of the film, but it's all about it. There's something very Jewish happens when you put on the film. Amzu, what did Hashem want me to do? You resisted whatever you were in the middle of, and you let go of that, and you said, okay, this guy has to put on film. That's who a Jew is, Amzu, and that connects you to Asmus. I just want to mention something. The Rebbe speaks about connecting to Asmus through obedience, through accept sense of reverence and accepting Hashem's sovereignty. Another discourse that we spoke about revelation, about light. In addition to Hashem wanting to have a home in this world, where a home is a place where His essence is present, and that we accomplish through doing mitzvahs with a sense of reverence for Hashem, a sense of taking the yoke of Hashem. Hashem also wants us to reveal God's light in this world. And the light of Hashem wants to have a beautiful home. Like David, like the Rebbe says about marriage, that it may have a home, but it's the woman who creates the home to be a beautiful home. Similar way, Hashem wants us not just to create a home for Him, where when you're at your house, you're able to be fully expressed, your essence is there. But Hashem also wants to have a beautiful home. And the beautiful home is accomplished through the simcha you have in mitzvah. So mitzvah done without simcha does not have light in the mitzvah. The light in the mitzvah comes specifically through the joy in the mitzvah. Okay, continuing on in chapter Vav, Perek Vav. And this is the meaning of the pasuk that the Maimer is based on. This nation I have created for my sake. It shall declare my praise. Pirush, what this means is, and all of creation is for the sake of this nation. And this nation is created to declare my praise. All of creation, why did Hashem make anything? It's for this nation. And why did Hashem make this nation? So that the nation should declare Hashem's praise. Only when a Jew has this sense of reverence for the Eibishter, the sense of accepting Hashem's yoke, only then can a Jew possibly declare Hashem's praise in sync with God's intent. What does this mean? When you serve Hashem with logic and reason, if you serve Hashem with logic and reason, it's identical to someone who is standing in front of a king. And while he's standing in front of the king, he makes a signal to his friend across the room and says, hey, how are you doing? In other words, and the law is he gets the death penalty. Why does he get the death penalty? Because in front of the king, he's only supposed to be the king. So in a similar way, a Jew is approaching the Eibishter, is approaching Hashem's mitzvah. It's not supposed to be, this one I like, this one makes sense to me. It's not supposed to be that way. If a Jew is thinking that way, I like this one I'll do. It's sort of like standing in front of the king and saying, I'm here and that's something I want to say. Which that's not appropriate. In front of the king, this is the king. Even if he is a perfect tzaddik who loves Hashem with a love of delights, he still has to think that the greatest love is great, but he has to also think he's standing in front of the king. And his service of Hashem, he may be a tzaddik, but it's still with a sense of self. I love.
So this goes back to having the bittul and the joy at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So though the love is a good thing, but he's still a yesh. And does say and he is sort of like signaling in front of the king. Only when he has reached this Kabbalah Sil, this acceptance of the yoke of Hashem, acceptance of Hashem's sovereignty, then he becomes Amzu, then he becomes this nation, the one that's connected with this. He connects with the essence of Hashem, who is the only one we can really say about him, he is who he is. Then you're able to declare my praise. Then you're able to declare God's praise in sync with Hashem's intent. Now, it seems like from this paragraph that the Rebbe is saying that the perfect service of Hashem is Kabbalah Sale. That tzaddik is not serving Hashem perfectly. If there's a sense of self, there has to be the Kabbalah Sale. As I think we had in Nagimim recently about how the Kabbalah Sale specifically is what reveals your essence. This idea of acceptance of Hashem's yoke, that's what uncovers your essence. And even someone who is very lofty in their knowledge of Torah could also reach the level of a simple person with their sense of Kabbalah Sale, their sense of accepting Hashem's yoke. Now, there's another point over here, and that is, in addition to reaching the highest level of service of Hashem, as we said in the previous paragraph, if you're not going to serve Hashem with that acceptance of Hashem's yoke, you're going to make mistakes. Like we discussed a few weeks ago about this guy who was traveling on Shabbos every week to spend time with his fellow Jews and to eat kosher, and he just felt like he had to, like he's stuck where he is. He has one opportunity once a week to be with other Jews, and what the Rebbe tells him is that you can't measure mitzvahs. It's a long letter. I'm not going to address it again right now, but this idea of measuring mitzvahs. Why do we measure mitzvahs? Why do we say, well, this guy, I'm going to go help him out. This guy, I'm not going to help him out. This guy, this bit, where does it come from? It comes from the lack of Kabbalah, lack of knowing who we're serving. So,
Whoa. Let's take a step back here. All right, come on. We also have to have gevura, as it says, and choose and have judgment and put some logic into the giving. Just to have unbounded tzedakah giving or kindness doesn't work out for anybody.
You only do what Hashem wants you to do. Now you're saying, yes, Hashem wants you to use your logic sometimes. Okay, so when Hashem asks you for logic, you should put a stamp on your head and say Rabashkins, and say that, why do I have this piece of meat on my shoulders? As the Friedrich Rebbe says, in order to aim a rifle. So the soldier has to have a piece of meat on his shoulders so he could aim the rifle. So to a Yid has to say, okay, the Eibusha wants me to learn Torah now. I have to use my seichel. The Eibusha wants me to be discerning right now. Okay, if that's what Hashem wants you to do, fine. But do that because Hashem says to do that. Hashem says to use your seichel. And as we learn that's what tefillin does. Tefillin is supposed to make our heart and mind in sync with the will of Hashem, that we should be sensitive to what Hashem wants, instead of just doing what this Kabbalah Sale, the sense of acceptance of Hashem's yoke, will help guide your mind to be the way it's supposed to be, so that you don't gravitate and say, well, the halacha is fascinating. Halacha is that there is no atonement for someone who steals less than the amount of a Shava Pruta. Halacha is like this. This is fascinating. Come to a Jewish court and you have a question. Yankel took a quarter from me, or he didn't pay you back. What's halacha? So, and then another guy comes, another court case about a $5 million deal. The halacha is the Bezdin is not allowed to ignore your question at the quarter and go to the more important. They could hand you a quarter maybe and get you out of the Bezdin. That's a different story. But they have to address your question first. Your question is as important as that question. And not only that, amazing. If someone steals, let's say a quarter is worth less than a Shava Pruta. In that scenario, there is no atonement. The Shema even writes about how the guy, only death could atone for the stealing less than a quarter. Because if you steal $1, you give back the $1, and that's an atonement for the stealing $1. If it's less than $1, wow, you're off the charts. So it doesn't always work with the way our sense of measurement. This, if you steal $1, now you can fix it. Less than $1, less than a pruta, you're hopeless. So in order to get it right, the first step is Amzu, to accept Hashem's sovereignty. Let's continue on the next paragraph. Because of Amzu, the pasuk emphasizes this nation. Amdaika. What's the emphasis of the word nation? Dr. Bress, you want to say something?
Yeah, like the flood. I understood the world was destroyed because everybody was stealing 1 or 2 peas from the basket. When everybody, took it upon themselves that they could, break the law and flaunt the law, that was the death of the world. Is that what you're saying?
I haven't heard about the peas in the basket by the flood. That's interesting. The Gemara does say a story about, I think it was Rava maybe, that one of his students took a piece off a fence, like a little piece of wood, off a fence, a tiny piece of wood, to clean his teeth. And he said to him, if everyone does that, there won't be any fence anymore.
Yeah, well, it's the same thing. In other words, people would come to the market with a big, basket of peas on their shoulder. They, spent all the time picking the peas, and everybody takes 1 or 2 peas. And by the time they get to the center of the market, there's nothing in the basket. Nobody can be convicted, and everybody's laughing, and that's the end of the world. That's the end of the market.
You're saying it's true. You're saying it's true. But what you're saying is logical. We're not talking about logical. We're talking about the will of the Eibishter, Hashem's desire. So it's what you're saying is true. That's another perspective. And then what the Gemara is also another perspective. There won't be any fence left. Here, the Rebbe is saying something else. Here, the Rebbe is saying is that our approach to Yiddishkeit is not because in football, if a guy doesn't follow the orders of the coach, and even if he tackles the guy, he's still going to be, the coach will be upset at him because he didn't follow the rules of the coach, and that'll mess up the next play. That's where that has. That's a similar scenario, but here we're talking about the will of Hashem. It's not about what might happen later. It's well, yeah. There is our approach to this kind of logical way will make us measure mitzvahs in the wrong way. Yeah, and eventually there won't be any peas left in the basket. Yeah, okay.
It's like we have to constantly not want to do mitzvahs, so that's the only way we reach that level of. We're solely doing it because Hashem wants us to do it.
1 second. Didn't we just say before that there's a servant, there's a child who's a servant? He knows the reason and he understands it and he appreciates, and he's still a servant of his father.
All of the above. We're learning Chassidus. We're doing it. We're getting some, spiritual chemical properties of what's going on in and behind that mitzvah. But at the same time, it's like we have to have that thought: is I don't really want to do this, but I'm doing it because Hashem wants, and in the process of me doing it because Hashem wants, you go back to square one and say, oh, okay, now I'm enjoying it, but it's not my enjoyment as we learned, it's Hashem's enjoyment, so I'm having enjoyment because Hashem's having enjoyment, but I really at the same time don't want to do this, but and you just go in the circle.
Whoa. I don't know where you got this part about I don't want to do this thing. I think what you're referring to is the Gemara says a person should never say, I don't want to eat that white meat. Actually, I would rather eat the white meat. What should I do? My Father in heaven decreed upon me I can't eat that davar achar. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
So there's a couple things about that. First of all, the Mezusha Maggid says not everyone should say that. Not everybody should say that because someone who has tasted the white meat, as soon as he gets into conversation about the white meat, and says that the white meat is good, then he's already easy pickings to eat that white meat again. Only someone who hasn't, only a tzaddik gomer, a perfect tzaddik, who has no interest in the white meat in the first place. He's the one who should say, yeah, white meat is great, and only not eating because Hashem said so. That's number one. Number two, it's not important. The Tzemach Tzedek, famous story of Tzemach Tzedek, I'm sure you've heard. Tzemach Tzedek, someone came to Tzemach Tzedek, told Tzemach Tzedek, I don't like learning. And Tzemach Tzedek said, "Oi, you're foolish. What could I do? I'm missing out because I do like to learn. I do like to learn." So Tzemach Tzedek was saying he had this guy's an advantage in the fact he doesn't like to learn. But the Tzemach Tzedek didn't. It's not that your Jewish appreciation for a mitzvah and an animal soul's appreciation for mitzvah isn't a bad thing. You don't have to be Ashka the Grouch and look at every mitzvah and say, ew, feh. And okay, Hashem wants me to do it anyways. It's not how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to say there's a mitzvah, there's holy, and you're supposed to kiss the tefillin you put on. That's what say, feh, the tefillin. It's a kiss the tefillin. That's tefillin the Eibishter. Now, besides the fact that tefillin the Eibishter, and they're special and they're holy, what the underlying reason we do them is not because it's special and it's holy, it's because the Eibush said to do it. As it says in Gemara, if Hashem would tell us to chop wood, we would chop wood. But there's no reason to say feh, and Hashem doesn't want it. If a person has that feh thing for a mitzvah, so he's able to do a skafi, as it says in chapter 27 in Tanya, there's a highlight there too. But there's no reason to discount your natural appreciation for mitzvahs, whether it's your animal soul or your godly soul. Why?
I'm getting lost. It's like so you enjoy putting on the tefillin and you look forward to it. Isn't that, as you said, the same as the guy in the king's court calling out to his buddy? And he's saying, yeah, tefillin time. All right.
Let's say this. This is a guy who's a soldier of the Eibishter, and he is doing what Hashem wants him to do. And he puts the tefillin with a sense of, I'm a soldier. I do what Hashem wants me to do. And that's why he's doing it. And that's why if you be on a flight and everyone's fasten your seatbelts, so you don't have this tefillin, he jumps out of the plane, and he bangs, no, I need to get out right now. Hashem wants me to do this, even though it's not like what's most comfortable thing to do at the moment. But that's the underlying, that's who we are. But that was not saying you should not love mitzvah. That was not saying that you shouldn't appreciate mitzvah too. I'm saying that's not the motivating factor. That's not why we do it. We do it because Hashem said so. It's not saying to take away your love for mitzvah. It's not saying to turn off that sense of appreciation for mitzvah. He's saying that we have to have this, I'm a Hashem soldier. I belong to Hashem. Here or not. You have to have this thing. I am the Hashem soldier. I belong to Eibush. The Eibush is I'm a servant. That's what you have to have. Does that mean you can't also appreciate it? Like we learned about the faithful servant in last Maimer. You want to cause pleasure for the Eibush. It's pleasure for you. But besides, it's also possible you're a child, understand what tefillin is too. Maybe we should the bus Lagan chapter 4 and get a deeper understanding of this. Chomar Chiel, have something to say.
Well, I mean, you shared a number of stories throughout this mimer that I was assuming was trying to contextualize this deep connection that mitzvahs create with Hashem, where, as you just mentioned, the wood shop analogy, the mitzvah is, we shouldn't be in love with the mitzvah or what the mitzvah does to make us feel good. It's all about getting closer to this love for God, which is why the tefillin guy, the tank tefillin guy, he just wants to do it for the sake of this connection that he can't even describe. So he describes it as this, like, I'm not doing it for this or that. Like, I don't want Gan Eden. It was almost like he was talking, I won't say like who, because the Alter Rebbe is holy, but the Alter Rebbe says, I don't want Gan Eden. This guy kind of was saying it, but like on a much more warped path. But then the guy who you put tefillin on, and he's like, whoa, like Isarusa de la Ela, like, right, he's got this like crazy inspiration. That inspiration is we learned from the Alter Rebbe's Maimer Adam Kiakriv, right? That's superficial. It's only meant to create that bond with Hashem. It's not even real, and it's not even sustainable, which is why I don't know if that guy looks at you and thinks you feel that every day. Do you feel that what I just felt? You feel that every day? Because I put on tefillin right now and I felt that. So that's what I'm getting. It's still confusing because we have to practically implement it, but.
One second. My grandmother, La Shalom, Rebbetzin Yudis Levin, she once did this encounter with Chabad program in Israel, all these Russian immigrants, and she bench licht, and she showed everyone how to bench licht. And at the end of the evening, they asked all these new Russian immigrants, who wants to take upon this beautiful mitzvah of lighting Shabbos candles every week? And one lady gets up and says, I like to do this every week, but I can't cry like she does. That's like just too much, crying and whatever. There is our personal experience in the mitzvah and our attachment to it, and that's a good thing. But that's not why we do it. I'll tell you one more story, and I think the point will come across. There was Rabbi Hillel Laufer, he's a mashpia in Olatera. He told me about a boy in his yeshiva who never got up in the morning, always woke up late. And the boy joined the IDF after leaving Military. The next step is the IDF. And he comes back from the IDF, he's visiting for Pesach, and he says to him, you know, he always woke up late. So he says to him, say, how many times do you wake up late in the army? Looks at him and says, what are you talking about? Waking up late? Like, why would I ever do that? He couldn't believe it, because the boy put on the uniform. He knew that he's a soldier. They were speaking about knowing that you're a soldier, knowing that you belong to someone, knowing that you're not doing your own thing. Does that mean that the soldier doesn't have a different experience when he's doing something like, let's say, humanitarian thing and helping people in Serbia, like, you know, or washing clean the latrine? There's different experience. There's a different part of him which does, and you might say that you see more of the soldier when he's cleaning the latrine than when he's helping the people in Serbia. You might say you see more of who he is. Okay, but that doesn't mean he should not enjoy what he's doing when he's helping people in Serbia too. That has to be there as well. All right. Have a great day, Yonatan. Great day, Reb Zev. Great day, Reb Mordechai. Great day, Dr. Bressman. Great day, David. Litraut.